Yeah.
Hey, greetings, friends. Jacques Howard here. I'm at Hub 13 West Front Street in historic downtown Trenton, and I'm broadcasting Trenton 365 midweek, and I'm with Calvin Murrell. And during this period of time, you're going to get a chance to meet Calvin, and I often refer to him as Cal and Cal Hustle. And we're going to talk a little bit about the music, but the entrepreneurial stuff, and more importantly, give you an opportunity to hear a bit about Calvin, what he's doing, what he has been doing, what he plans on doing in the very near future, and most importantly, how you, your organization, and your small business can benefit from his services and getting in touch with him. Calvin, first of all, I want to say again publicly, man, thank you, because it's been a minute. We've been trying to get together for probably, what, 4 or 5 years?
It's pre-COVID, that's a fact. Put it like that.
Absolutely. So let's just jump right into it. And I'm going to say I met you, I guess it was probably about maybe 9-10 years ago or so, through the art and music scene here in Trenton and what was happening at 219. Big shout out to R.E.A.C.H and Sage Coalition and all the crew that's over there and what they've been doing. Know that the legacy and everything continues to live on, even if it's in relationships that are symbiotic in this. Talk about that period of time and how this idea of blended experiences has brought you to this space and place of who you are.
All right, so man, so we got to be talking, if we want to be accurate in our years, we are talking 2012, 2013, right? If we're going to start talking, Sage. And so for me personally, it was a time of like rebirth, right? It was a reset point for myself. And I say that musically, for the Hustle Emcee brand, and professionally, because it was when, a lot of the work that I do right now, kind of had its impetus, right? In terms of like consulting and business development and things of that nature. So, in a nutshell, had a group of brothers out here in Trenton, and I was just moving back into the city, looking to inject myself into, different things that was moving that fit my palate and looking where I could bring value. Casa was a longtime friend, like a brother of mine. Going back many years, obviously very, happy, excited, and proud to see, with the momentum that Sage was gaining as an organization, as a collective, and then meeting a lot of the other different counterparts. Black collar biz. Shout out to you. We spent a lot of time working and building a bond and a brotherhood, creatively, personally, and just getting to know one another as individuals. We had a lot of great time working just in the music space within that building, and then collaboratively with all of the other individuals from Leon, Wills, Graham, D Block, what I'm saying? Like, the list goes on, right? We can go on and on with the list. But what you have is, a community of individuals in a concentrated space, with the energy and a passion like no other to do things that had never been done before. Some real outside the box thinkers, and it was a great place for me it was fertile soil, right, for me to come and just bring a lot of my experiences, right, blended experiences. I think that's going to be the theme of what we're talking about. And just bring some value, man, and get on, hop in the car and ride. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely. I'm gonna try to like contain myself a little bit because I'm going back, thinking about like how the Gandhi Garden went, the Wu-Tang Wall, the Garden, and how that like went up the block to another garden at Crisis Ministry, and all these things happened in our period of time. And I want to make sure that, at least from my perspective, I'm capturing and documenting as much of it as possible so that our true story can be told.
Right.
So that the folks who were there, who lived it and experienced it, can tell it in their own terms, their own way, in their own experiences, so that it can be archived for generations. Because that is the impetus of what we're trying to do here at Hub 13. And collectively as a community here in Trenton. It's always been about, hey, how can I partner? How can I build with someone else? And I think that we've, in some cases, gotten away from that. And I think that it's coming back. And I think that folks like you who have taken the experiences, gone other places, designed, created, and now are bringing those skill sets back to saying, hey, look, how can I improve, this region in Trenton? So I thank you for that. Yeah, I want to jump around a little bit and talk about your entrepreneurial stuff, because I think that is oftentimes missed when we're talking about artists, and we think, oh, they're performing artists, they only do this, or one person only does this. You are doing a lot of things. So can we just talk a bit about your entrepreneurial efforts and why it's so important, and what you're looking to do with it in the near future?
Okay. So I think I first got my initial entrepreneurial bug. It was after getting laid off, right? We're gonna keep it funky, right?
Good.
The ambition was there, the curiosity was there beforehand. And I actually had set forth, a plan to resign from the corporate work that I was doing. At the time, I was working as a computer programmer. And I had interned at the same company for 4 to 5 years, and I converted full time as a programmer. And then I read a book about real estate, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and learned about assets, liabilities, just financial literacy in general. And that got my brain working. And so that's where the curiosity really began, right? So I had this plan where it was like around February 03. I said by August or September, I'm gonna resign from this job and find my way in real estate some kind of way. I want to learn how to invest in real estate. Matter of fact, that probably was about January, because it was in February that I got laid off.
It was almost a blessing.
You know what I'm saying? I looked at it like that, right? You got to take things in stride. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I collect unemployment while I map out my strategy instead of doing it some other type of way. So that was where it all began. So it went from having a tech background to now stepping into a new industry of real estate, which is something that was completely new to me, but I had some great teachers and mentors, and figuring out that space, figuring out where I wanted to land in that space. I knew I wanted to learn how to invest in properties, flip properties, buy cash flow properties, put tenants in them, things of that nature. But I needed a job, right? So, the entrepreneurial spirit was there, but I still had to survive. The name of this game is always survival, right? So I began working as a loan officer. But again, I was in a perfect environment to ask the questions that I needed to ask, to get the experience, the practical experience that I needed to get, dealing with property. So, and during that same time, right, I'm gonna switch gears again, but now we're talking about me moving in a different space, right? Not just, going into somebody's office, punching the clock, sitting at a desk in a cubicle, which is fine, but it just wasn't for me. But now I'm in a space that's a little more open. I have, more autonomy over my time, right? So now you got to figure out a discipline, right? The transition, going from being regimented to someone else's schedule to now having control over one's own schedule, and, drumming up the discipline to stay on track to pursue the different goals that you have, right? So that was where that all began for me. And it was during the same time period that I had some friends here. I wasn't living in Trenton at the time, but I had some friends here in Trenton for my years at TCNJ, right? And we had the idea to venture into the music business, but we wanted to approach it from the angle of launching an independent label, right? So now I'm like, I don't have to punch anyone's clock. I have my time. Let me manage this thing properly and make, make these different efforts work. So that was my first full on entrepreneurial venture. With some brothers of mine, some from here in the town, some from, some of us from other states, Detroit, myself being originally from New York, Pennsylvania, right across the water, right? So just coming together and, teaching ourselves how to run, just a creative hub, right? Because we were still figuring everything out. But the thing that was different about us that I think, you know, served benefit over time was we approached it from the perspective of being students, right? Um, if we're talking about entertainment and especially music and hip hop music, right? There's so much value placed on being in front of the camera or in front of the microphone and the creative output, or just the artist, the star, right? Which is very valuable to the business model. But what people don't see is all the other workings that go on behind the scenes that contribute to not only developing the talent, but developing the business. So that was very important to us from networking. These are early internet days. This is before Web 2, right? This is before blogs, before Facebook, before all that stuff, right? So yes, we read a lot of books. You know what I'm saying? We went out, to a lot of different networking events. We went to conferences across the country. We tried, we failed, we fell on our face, dried the blood on our lip, put band-aids on and got back to it. You know what I'm saying? But most importantly, we stuck to it. And we took the things that we were learning and we put them into practice. And that practice was us figuring out Pro Tools and, putting together all this music that sounds horrible now, right? But sonically, right? Because we didn't know what we were doing, but we knew where we were going, and we knew that, what we wanted to get out of it, right? So what was important at that time was just, developing, back to that discipline word, to be consistently creative and to have some type of targeted output, right? Some type of deliverable. So our first venture was a compilation project. And it was during that process, that's when I began indulging my own creative passion. And, Hustle Emcee was kind of born out of that. It wasn't the initial goal, but it was more so, all right, we have to get this project done. I have ideas, I have rhymes, we come from, cycling, freestyling and things of that nature, but at that point I hadn't quite taken it, serious to where I had a vision to become any type of MC, any type of artist. I didn't even know what to call myself, so I wasn't even looking at things from that perspective. So that was our first full-on entrepreneurial venture, was an independent record label. And so between that and what I was doing simultaneously with real estate and the people I'm meeting, the network I'm building, I kind of said to myself, I can figure this out. I can stick to it.
Oftentimes when I sit down and record these interviews, I just let it go, and I'm just as intrigued in the conversation as I hope anyone in the audience is. And I'm kind of off the rails here in my thought process. Even though we've known each other and we talked about a bunch of different things, even leading up to this, like you got me thinking about something different now. So so thank you for that. I want to talk about your process, and you're going to come back, and folks, you're going to get a chance to see Cal in person. We're going to try to coordinate some stuff so that we can have some live events where you can get a chance to experience him, his network, his crew in their wholeness. And we'll see what we can do about doing that here at Hub 1313 West Front Street. But I want you to just talk a bit about, and go into the weeds if you like, the process of development, because you talked very clearly about what I think a lot of people think about: music, entertainment, the person who's in front of the camera. But there's a whole slew of other people on the other side of the camera who are just as important and vital to the success of what's happening in front of the camera. And oftentimes those people who aren't on camera are the ones who get to write the checks. So if you're writing checks that are big number checks, how much are you getting from a financial standpoint? But I'd like for you to talk about your process of development, because again, you spoke about successes, some tribulations, and then you talk about, hey, getting yourself situated, get back up on your feet and keep this moving, the discipline.
Yeah. So I look at it like, one thing that we often fail to throw into the equation is time, right? Obviously, you have the now and the time and space that we're dealing with in the present, but this is career-based talk that we're dealing with, right? Life is long, but it's short. life is short, but it's long. So if you are serious about anything that you're doing, you can't discount the fact that time plays into it. And if you want to be doing something down the line, it's like I learned this one approach to business, right? And sometimes it is, you'll hear it vocalized in a lot of different ways. And sometimes it's even in a form of a half-witted complaint, right? It's like, man, I spend so much time working in my business that I don't work on my business. Right. So one of the things I do is websites, right? I have clients that I build and maintain websites for. Me sitting down and working on somebody's Shopify website or WordPress website, that's me working in my business, right? You don't necessarily need a business to do that. You can be a freelancer as self, right? Or if you're like, I really enjoy this, I can make a good living off this, a decent living off of it, or I even see ahead of the curve a little bit. I can build a system and then a set of systems around this, which is i.e. a business. And now that business has the ability to function just like you would as self, but it's over here, right? We have social security numbers, your business has a tax ID number. It's a different entity, but they're both entities. So your business can function in a lot of the same ways that you can. Now, if we're talking about development, right? You have personal development, and it's things that you do to work on your physical, your mental, your spiritual, things of that nature. Your personal credit, your job, your paycheck, right? Your financial development, things of that nature. Your relationship, developing those relationships, things of that nature. You can do a lot of these same things. You should do a lot of these same, you need to do a lot of these same things with your business. You know what I'm saying? And it starts with establishing a business, right? What type of business do I want to establish? What entity, LLC, S corp, C corp, right? All that type of stuff. And then based on that, what are the components that I need to really build this thing out so that I do the proper work on the business so I can work in the business for a long time, right? Right. So in a nutshell, that's why time is such an important factor in development, right? So going back to, the independent label, shout out to my Mind on Money team. That was foundation of all of this. That's why we approach things, from such a student perspective, right? Because we realize, that is greater than us as individuals. So there's certain measures that we have to put in place and maintain and govern to be able to, survive and thrive on into the future through the different seasons of life.
Gotcha. I'm speaking with Calvin Murrell. I'm excited because I got this technology going. I got multiple cameras and stuff happening, and this ain't my thing. Big shout out to Phil Charles, Flip Marley, who is doing the engineering today. But Calvin, I know you, but I don't know you. You know what I mean? And hearing you talk about this, man, it's just got me really excited. And I'm trying to think of how I can comfortably steer this in a way that it doesn't look like I'm geeking out. You know what I mean? But I'm glad that you're agreeing to come back and talk about some more in the future. I'd like for you to talk in the future about your thoughts on time, because that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if a lot of folks really pay attention to that. And then I also want you to talk about terminology, like the words that we speak, as well as the words that others speak to us, and like what those meanings are, and how that really plays into a part of what we're really doing.
Example.
All right. So prime example is what you gave just a little while ago, talking about having a business and being in business and working on your business,
right,
and all those different things. But someone may just think, oh, I've got a business. But in actuality, they may just have a job.
Yeah.
And I think that clarifying and providing real world examples to the audience is going to be really helpful, especially to the younger people. I know that you and I are very passionate about passing our knowledge and wisdom and stuff down to them. So if we could, maybe the next time we come back, talk a little bit more about like some of those foundation structural things that you created in your own process to like kind of eliminate some of that noise, like knowing, hey, no, or am I doing business work or am I doing someone else's business work? Am I working on myself? Those types of things.
Sure. So like just to even touch on that question right there, right? Think of a lot of, and not to get morbid and like that, but funerals and homegoing services. Often, a lot of times you'll hear the pastor or whoever that's supposed to speak about the dash, right? Born in this year, transition in this year, and that dash, which is our life, that's the time, right? So that's what we dealing with is, just the day-to-day, the multiple nows, right? Because now 5 minutes ago was now, but now is still now. You know what I'm saying? And the continuum of time, which makes up life. So I know that got real obtuse right there.
I'm with it. I hope that everybody else
Yeah.
gets this because you please keep going because I've got another question to ask on it.
No, I mean I'm kind of freestyling, but like these are real things that we need to never lose sight of because time just does slip away from us. So if you're talking about bringing it all the way back to talking about any business, right? When you decide that you want to go into business, one of the very next things that you should be doing is figuring out how you want to get out of that business. What's your exit strategy, right? Even if that exit strategy is to pass it on to your heirs, right? Now we're talking legacy. But not all businesses have that particular exit strategy. Some businesses, are designed to create value within a space and then exit out of that by doing like a merger or acquisition or taking on a partner or, right? So, and now getting back to terms, right? When I read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the author of that book is Robert Kiyosaki, right? So he wrote this whole series of books, right? They're all like purple and black, right? You still read, hard copy books, so if you want to do the audio book, then that's cool too. But he had this other book called Cash Flow Quadrant, right? So, you mind if I-
Yeah.
So the boxes might be out of order. I'm gonna try to, hopefully the camera don't turn it backwards.
Well, while Calvin's doing that, we will make sure that you get a chance to find Calvin's social media stuff will be shared with this audio, the video, etc. There's going to be a couple different variations of this that goes out because again, I'm playing with some cool technology here. But so the cash flow quadrant, you might not be able to see it, but it literally is a quadrant, square box, SOBI, and you want to share what that stands for?
Right. So we're talking about time and exit strategy and so on and so forth, and just ways to, strategically approach what it is you're doing with your business. Those letters are different, different spaces that you could be in relation to your business, right? So I'm sorry, I got more. There's an E, right? So we have, this is the E. Not B.
All right, so E as an echo, SOEI.
Right.
Stands for.
So the E, you're an employee, right? The S stands for self-employed, right? So the difference from moving from an E to an S is when you're an employee, you work for someone else's business. They own your job, right? Whether you're fired, resigned, laid off, the onus is on them to replace that job with another person, right? So you don't own the job. When you go into an S quadrant as a self-employed person, a lot of times, and I don't want to, offend anybody, but sometimes, like the word entrepreneur and the word owner is used a little bit loosely. But when you're self-employed, like if you're a solo entrepreneur, you're a one-person business. Yes, you are a business owner, but the major step that you have taken from moving on from the E is that you now own your job, right? So if you're a freelancer and, you set up shop as a business and, you're doing your thing in a professional capacity, you now own your job, you're self-employed, right? The next,
No, I want to jump in because for some folks, like if you're thinking about it this way, thinking about it from retail to wholesale to manufacturing to industry creation, all those different types of levels. And Robert Kiyosaki, I mean, I've read the books as well. They're great books, easy reads. We're not getting any juice or support from him on this, and I don't know what his political background is, but I think we're not into that. It's a very simple process. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Again, I agree with Calvin. I think it's one of those things that a lot of young people should read, that like junior high school, just to kind of get an idea about what direction they're going in. And I know when I read it, it helped me realize that I come from a family that are workers. Like I was bred to be a worker, whatever that was. And with that, there is a re-education and an overstanding that you have to go through to get to that space where you start moving differently. And it's amazing when you do that. I like to say it's like scales coming off your eyes. You start to move differently, and you're not so concerned about, hey, I've got to go and do X right now to get Y. I'm building something for something else. And it may not look like everything's happening right here, like you said, in that dash, but that is really where life actually happens. And, a lot of us have been tricked, especially even tax time. A lot of people have been tricked into thinking, hey, I got to get a tax return. Well, you're getting no interest on your money that the government has had all year if you're getting a return. So you really want to have that as close as possible to zero, or you owing a little bit. Although I'm not a financial person, but that's just basic mathematics. If someone's got your money and they're giving it back to you with no interest, you'd be better off just keeping it.
And they're getting a return off your money.
Yeah.
You get no return off your money.
Yep.
Different conversation.
Yes. And then also, I want to make sure that we talk about intellectual property, because as a musician, as a creative, as an artist, I beg you, please take some time and think about intellectual property with what you have and with what you're going to create, because that is another revenue stream that a lot of us are missing out on. When we listen to music and stuff on radio or watch movies or commercials, old things, generally there's people who are still making revenue off of that, and people of color have often been taken advantage of in those spaces. And part of the business of what Calvin does and what we do here at Hub 13 is to make sure that more people are aware of what their rights and privileges and opportunities are.
Look at it like, I'll give you a quote, right? Just to, develop that seed that you plant, right? I read somewhere around like 2017, we know who J.P. Morgan is. There was a quote about streaming music as an asset class, and how streaming music as an asset class in a down economy outperforms other asset classes.
Because people always want entertainment. I'm going to shut it down because we're here on 13 West Front Street. The city of Trenton's Public Works Department is coming through picking up our trash. Big shout out to the men and women who were doing that. Oftentimes, they don't get the respect that they need and deserve. Cities do not function without the folks who are doing this type of work. And oftentimes, they're not given the proper credit. So I want to make sure that we do that here, and we acknowledge you and we appreciate you. All right. Calvin, appreciate you, man, so much. You're going to come back and we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. Make sure that you guys keep your eyes open, because there's going to be a couple different editions of this video. And when our sound team here, the engineers, start chopping us up, I can't wait to see what they do with Calvin's music blended in. Maybe we could talk about that.
Indeed, of course. Don't have it any other way.
My man. All right, folks. Jacques Howard here, Trenton 365 midweek, broadcasting from Hub 13 West Front Street, historic downtown Trenton. Remember, it's always about justice, peace, and humility. About that and this.